All right, out there in Twitch land, it is Wednesday night, and that means here for Green Oaks Gaming, it is time for inspiration. We're going to be taking a miniature and creating a character based off of that miniature. It's what we do every Wednesday night. Most of the time, we're focused on characters for players. There are times where we will use monsters or NPCs for the GM aspect of it. So you can see my process, how I do it for my own games, for my own characters. Now, sadly, I am primarily a GM. So I don't always get the opportunity to create characters for in-game. I create a lot of characters, but I don't always get to play them. So I hope that this is insightful and leads you to look at character creation in different ways. Of course, we take the whole concept and throw it on their head on our Wednesday night, rather than coming up with a concept, creating a character that fits that concept, and then searching for a mini to match our character. We pick a mini and we make a character that we get inspired to create based off that miniature. So I'm Joe with Green Oaks Gaming, and welcome to Inspirations. You can see on the big screen here that we have our player character sheet, some dice, our player's handbook, as well as a pencil so we can fill out information, and a couple of miniatures. Now generally I only pick the miniatures generally on screen a couple of times beforehand, but just to give some background on why tonight's show is a little bit different. So many of the miniatures that I had set aside as kind of player characters out of the lot of unpainted miniatures that I have from the Reaper Miniatures Bones 5 Kickstarter, which, quick plug, even though they are not a sponsor of mine, they are currently doing the Reaper Bones 6 Kickstarter. So if you're interested in getting a fantastic opportunity to buy a lot of miniatures at a very affordable price, check out reaperminiatures.com. Again, I am not sponsored by them. I just happen to really love, one, Kickstarters, especially when you've got a great value. Two, I love their miniatures. The products that they've been putting out in Bones have continued to show improvement. They're fantastic sculpts. They've got really great sculptors doing the sculpts, and the details on the miniatures are just absolutely stunning detail for plastic miniatures. And again, a great value for me. That's something that's important that I love to pass on to the community. So Reaper Bones 6 is underway now. Go to reaperminiatures.com to check it out. These miniatures that we've been using in this whole process, in this streaming series, have been Reaper Bones 5. So it's something that I can really vouch for myself. And if you know, I'm not speaking on behalf of a company backing me or supporting me or anything like that. 100% of this is just me having a great admiration for what they've put out. But many of the figures came with some assembly required. So I figured rather than assembling on screen and cutting into our character creation process, I wanted to go ahead and assemble a lot of miniatures. And we did that, many of them, almost all of them, on the channel here. So you can go back and look at the VOD if you want to see some of that assembly. But there were a couple that really sparked my interest and really got me like excited to do characters based off the miniatures. So the rest of them I put it into bags, and they're on the desk so that going forward we can do the regular process that we do where we'll pick out of the bag. But two in particular caught my attention, and I thought I'm going to use one of these two for this week's stream. So I'm going to adjust my light here a little bit as well as the mic, and here in a moment I'm going to adjust the screen. But two miniatures that really caught my eye. This one here is just a very cool miniature. I love a couple of aspects about it. First, the bald head and the big, huge mustache. Really just thought, and for some reason, it really caught my eye. So this maul carrying huge, massive figure with his bald head and that big fancy mustache. And it really caught my eye. I thought, ooh, that looks like a great character. And then this one here. So we haven't really dabbled a whole lot. I mean, we've done a sorceress, we've done a warlock, and we've done a druid, but this figure here also caught my guard. I loved some of the aspects, while part of me as a painter fears all of these little bits and bobs. The character itself of this miniature really caught my eye. A lot of little doodads, this basket, this barrel, this overladen backpack and pouch, and the jar in the hand, and also kind of a bald head, but a striking figure nonetheless. So both of these two figures really caught my eye and thought, oh, there's a story there. I can feel it. I can feel there's a story there. So I thought we would pick one of these two to use for our character creation. And obviously one could be a little more arcane or magically based, the other more martial based. So before I change the screens around and we get into character creation, here's what we're going to do. We're going to separate these two out, and this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to roll a dice, and whatever the dice determines, that's what we're going to build. And it looks like a 5. Looks like we're going here. So this gal, I'm just going to move her aside because then we will use her in the next stream. Because again, just very striking and very interesting miniature that's really got me excited to build a character. So I'm going to adjust the screens here, and we will focus on the character sheet. Now I'm going to adjust a little bit. Of course, that first bit is there just for more a screen capture, because I don't do a whole ton of editing for thumbnails or anything like that. Just time-wise, I don't have the opportunity to spend the time doing it. So I'm going to move my player's handbook where I can access it quick and easy on the other side of my desk. Get it opened into our first bit. And then process-wise, I generally go through and roll all of my abilities, which is a kind of a funky thing to do, but it's kind of a callback to basics. And sometimes I can find it very interesting. So my process is I roll 4d6 and I drop the lowest dice. Now there are lots of ways to generate abilities, but for this stream I thought it would be very interesting. Ooh, and you can tell already we're starting out rough. So there, that was a 2. So we would start with a 12. And I know I have not picked my class or race yet. Ooh, 13. That one is not on screen, but it was a 6. And a 12. Wow, so far we're just above average on this fellow. But smart. And charismatic. So far what we've rolled is a 12, 13, 12, 15, 12, 15. So all of them are above average. I'm pretty happy with that. But while we're doing this here, let's go ahead and talk about the miniature itself and start with the race. So this one here, for me anyhow, there are no pointed ears, and it is a large miniature. And when you compare that to the dwarf we built, I mean, definitely a larger than a dwarf, but not so massive that it is something like a Goliath. So I'm going to easily say the race could be human or maybe an Aasimar. I'm going to go with a human. I know you're thinking already, you're thinking it's a human fighter, it's boring. Not so. Not so, we're not there yet. So as a human, we already know that the character is going to begin with racial abilities, racial traits. And because we choose a human, let me flip into our human aspect, to our human race. I actually like to consider, instead of saying race, what's the species, I guess, is the better way to do it. So for our ability scores, each of them gets to increase by 1 because we're a human. Which is good. Age, humans reach adulthood in their late teens and live less than a century. Now this fellow here with that big huge mustache and everything does not lend me to believe that this is a teen. Absolutely not. So I'm not going to touch age to start. Alignments, of course, I always like to have an alignment start out so that I have good aspects of how I'm going to play the character. They may not stay that same alignment because I do think that alignments are tenuous and they flow and they change and they have highs and lows. I think that's true of humanity as a whole. So especially when I'm working with a human, I do want to have an alignment to start so I know how to role play them. But I'm not there yet. Now, size, we know that humans are medium, and generally that'll mean between 5 and 6 feet tall, especially when you compare to our dwarf. I think that is accurate. So for the height, I'm actually going to put that this fellow is 6 foot flat. Now our speed, because they're a human, is going to be 30 feet. And we're going to start filling in some of the details on languages. We know that because they're a human, they have common, and that's read, write, and speak. So when you have a proficiency with a language, that means you can read, write, and speak. So those are things that you're fluent in. And then one extra language of your choice. So we know that humans generally learn languages of other peoples they deal with, sometimes including obscure dialects. So you can easily go with Orc curses, Elvish, Dwarvish, just a whole lot of opportunity. I actually like that this person here could have some Dwarvish. Just in case in the party there are other dwarves, I want to be able to keep it to where they're able to really communicate well should they need to between the human and the dwarf. So let's go ahead and start popping these abilities in here. So we know the strength is going to be a 13, dexterity of a 14, constitution of 13, 16 intelligence, 13 wisdom, and 16 charisma. Not too shabby, not too shabby. Now it isn't that 18 strength or 17 strength, which you would think a martial class would really excel at. But that could be one of the things that we look at ways that we want to improve. We want to get stronger and stronger as a martial class. But starting out for level 1, I think that's actually really good rolls, really good rolls. Of course, I'm going to be the player. We don't have any experience points yet, so we've still got a lot of opportunities to go. We know our proficiency bonus to start is going to be a 2. So let's go ahead and start assigning our modifiers on here. And that'll allow us to start carrying things over. Now for our race, that's pretty much it. Now we just have to decide a class. I think the race was actually the easiest part. So now we want to go into class. So there are a couple of things here that we want to pay attention to. One, they're definitely wearing armor. You can see those plates in there, the greaves, the boots, the pauldrons, the breastplate. There is definitely an armor element. So this has got to be a class that's going to wear armor. And for weapons, they want to be able to use a maul. I think that's a cool aspect that I want to keep. Now some funkiness. Here is a book. And you can see there is the hilt of a blade behind that pouch. And then of course a big pouch, a cape. So we want a class that can use a blade as well as a maul. Now it could be that they don't use the blade, and we could go with a cleric pretty easy, especially with that maul. But do we really want to? The question starts to become, what other options do we have? The armor, of course, is the biggest piece. So we want something that can utilize heavy armor. So that definitely is going to limit us down. We could not do a barbarian and be able to use things like our rages just because of that armor. Bards are proficient with light armor. So cleric works. Druid, no, because it's a metal. Fighter obviously works. Monk, there's no armor there. Paladin definitely works. Ranger, nope, light and medium armor. Rogue, light armor. Sorcerer, no armor. Warlock, light armor. And Wizard, no armor. So we're looking at a Paladin, a Fighter, or a Cleric. Now if anybody's in chat, what's your thoughts? Fighter class, Paladin class, or Cleric? If we choose Cleric, we've got to justify that blade. That's the only challenge. Now we built a fighter with the dwarf. So I actually am leaning towards building a paladin. And I think that's what we're going to do. Excuse me. So a holy warrior that's bound to a sacred oath. We know their hit die then is going to be a D10, and they're going to have primary abilities of strength and charisma. Well, we've got a really high charisma with that 16. Our intelligence is definitely higher than our strength, but we're still above average with that strength. And I know through growth of this character, I can put any of my ability upgrades into strength to increase that. Saving throw proficiencies are going to be, this is the interesting part, wisdom and charisma. So charisma kind of gets that double dump of saving throw proficiency as well as primary ability. And with that high of a charisma, it works really well. My wisdom is a 13, my strength is a 13, so those are kind of tied out there at 13. I think it works good. And then for my proficiencies, I've got all armor, shields, simple weapons, I've got martial weapons. And then as we go into the paladin aspect of it, let me get there in the book. All right. So we do know that Paladin swears to uphold justice and righteousness. And again, there are variations on this, especially when you look at some of the other source materials. We're building directly out of the player's handbook as much as possible because that's where most people are going to start. Now, there will be times where we'll pull in some of those other sources, but for these builds, we're really going to focus on player's handbook. So there aren't as many options in the player's handbook. But until we start bringing in some of that other source material, and we'll probably get there after we've run through each of the classes a couple of times, that way we can expand on the basics. But we know for our first level paladin, we will have some features of divine sense and lay on hands. Now we know we don't have any spell slots at first level. Now in second level we will start to get some, so we'll keep the spellcasting class sheet with the character sheet because we're going to need it as this paladin levels up. So the most important aspects of paladins, the nature of his or her holy quest, out of the player's handbook it does say, although the class features related to your oath don't appear until you reach third level, plan ahead for that choice by reading the oath descriptions at the end of the class. So one of the things we want to do is go ahead and move into those sacred oaths, and I'm actually going to put it on the sheet so that I've got it as a strong reminder of this character's oath. Because as the player's handbook says, becoming a paladin involves taking vows that commit the paladin to the cause of righteousness, an active path of fighting wickedness. The final oath, taken when he or she reaches third level, is the culmination of all the paladin's training. So some characters with this class don't consider themselves true paladins until they've reached third level and made this sacred oath. For others, the actual swearing of the oath is a formality, an official stamp on what has always been true in the paladin's heart. So this kind of makes me think of things like in Game of Thrones, where Jon goes to the wall, and it's a bit of time he has to go through training and development before he can actually swear fealty to the Black, to when he can actually take on the Black, and then that's his cause, right? So you could argue that Jon Snow is a paladin, and when we meet him, he was just starting at that first level. So kind of a comparative analysis, I suppose. So in the player's handbook, what are the sacred oaths? You've got the Oath of Devotion. You've got the Oath of the Ancients, Oath of Vengeance. Of those, the Oath of Devotion binds a paladin to the loftiest ideals of justice, virtue, and order. Sometimes called cavaliers, white knights, or holy warriors, these paladins meet the ideal of the knight in shining armor. So the Oath of the Ancients is as old as the race of elves and the rituals of the druids. Sometimes called Fey Knights, Green Knights, or Horn Knights, paladins who swear this oath cast their lot with the side of light in the cosmic struggle against darkness because they love the beautiful and life-giving things of the world, not necessarily because they believe in principles of honor, courage, and justice. And then Oath of Vengeance is a solemn commitment to punish those who have committed a grievous sin. When evil forces slaughter helpless villagers, when an entire people turns against the will of the gods, when a thieves guild grows too violent and powerful when a dragon rampages through the countryside. At times like these, paladins arise and swear an oath of vengeance to set right that which has gone wrong to these paladins. So, oath of devotion, oath of the ancients, and oath of vengeance are the three options we could choose. So this fellow here seems a little prim and proper, right? His armor seems to be in good order. He's got a well-kept mustache, a clean-shaven bald head. Obviously, he's got a book, so some type of import there. Massive weapon, so making a strong statement in his appearance. Sounds pretty cavalier to me. So I am actually going to go with an oath of devotion. And then in parentheses, I'm going to put that's 3rd level. So now that we have that kind of set out, let's go through and keep moving on. So we know for the paladin, we're going to have our 1st level hit points be 10 plus the constitution modifier. So we're going to start with 11 hit points. That's our current maximum. And then as we level up, we'll roll a 1d10 plus the constitution modifier and add those in. We've already got all of our proficiencies written down. We know what our saving throws are going to be proficient in. And then we get skills. We get to choose 2 out of athletics, insight, intimidation, medicine, persuasion, and religion. So this fellow here seems to be pretty smart and kind of intimidating, right? With his stern look, his strong maul and armor. So I definitely am going to choose intimidation as one of those skills. And then I also am going to choose, seems like a pretty smart person, but also very charismatic. So I could go either insight or persuasion, pretty easy. Insight or persuasion. I'm going to go with persuasion. Very cavalier, good about talking his way through things and out of things. And then on the class we get some equipment. So we have a martial weapon, a shield, or 2 martial weapons. And because they don't have a shield, I'm going to do 2 martial weapons. We get 5 javelins or a simple melee weapon. I'm going to go with a simple melee weapon. We get a priest pack or an explorer's pack. So you can see there's no backpack, so we'll come back to this. I'm going to just put priest pack to start to the side a little bit. And then chainmail and a holy symbol. Now this is where we have to be a little creative because obviously our miniature does not have chainmail. And definitely wearing plate mail. Definitely wearing plate mail. And I'll show you how I'm going to try to utilize some of my persuasion to my DM to allow me to use plate armor at 1st level. I know it's going to be a challenge. Most GMs would say, nope, you need to adventure to be able to get there. But I'm going to show you how I would try to argue my case to my GM. So then let's go back into the features and traits. Out of the divine sense, as an action, we can open our awareness to detect forces of good and evil, basically. As an action, And this will last one turn. We can, no location of Celestial, Fiend, or Undead in 60 feet range. So it's pretty good. Now you can use this feature a number of times equal to 1 plus your charisma modifier. So I can use this 4 times. So I'm going to put myself 4 little boxes here so that I can keep track of how often I'm using this in game. And then lay on hands. So Blessed Touch can heal wounds. You have a pool of healing power that replenishes when you take a long rest. So I can restore a total number of hit points equal to your paladin level times 5. So, whoop, wrong spot. That would be 5 hit points. And let's see. Your Blessed Touch can heal wounds. You have a pool of healing power that replenishes when you take a long rest. With that pool, you can restore a total number of hit points equal to your paladin level times 5. Okay, so we've got 5 hit points total, so we can spread that out in our healing. Now, I do want to mark down here at 2nd level, we will do a fighting style. So I'm going to put in parentheses 2nd fighting style. And I want to start thinking about that now because I want to use great weapon fighting with that maul. I think that's something that I need to be aware of as a player, so if I write that down on my character sheet, I'm going to have a better opportunity to remember it. Now, one thing that we didn't do that we normally do is pick a name early on, and part of that's because it's a human, you can use any name that you want to, any name at all. And I kind of wanted to wait until I start getting into the background and everything to start looking at the name of the character that we're going to be doing. But I think at first thoughts, I'm going to go ahead and do Vents, and because he looks so kind of prim and proper, I'm going to do Vents, let's say Stalwart. And I'm going to spell it a little funky so it's a little bit different for that last name, and really allows us to kind of have that little twist of words on it. Now I'm going to move him aside because we're going to start looking at some of the background aspects of it. And some of the little bits we're going to have for his weight. Now he seems like a pretty massive fellow, but much of that could be in the armor. But he's definitely strong and built enough to be hauling around a maul. So pretty dense bone structure on him. Now your randomness, your random chart says your base is going to be 110 pounds times 2d4. Or with that modifier. So we're going to pop in here and say, let's see what we would have here. Let's say we're going to do 275. That's pretty stalwart and hefty for this figure that's 6 feet. I think that's pretty well based. Now, we did say the average starting time is late teens, but this figure looks a little bit older. So I'm actually going to make him a little bit older. He's going to be 25 at level 1. So he's going to be much older than the others at the comparative level. He's going to age faster, and that could be a detriment, but it'll also be a point of RP. Why are you just going out and adventuring when you're so old? So eyes, I'm going to do hazel eyes, and I'm going to do tanned skin, very, very tanned skin. Hair, now because he's bald, but has a big mustache, I'm actually going to put red, because I can envision with this miniature, once we get it painted and everything, with this big red mustache. And we're not going to make it like, cartoon red. We're just going to do it red auburn color, like a strawberry blonde color. That's what my beard does, so it makes a lot of sense to me. And again, I think it's kind of funny. So now I do want to jump back into the alignment aspect. And for this character, obviously that kind of cavalier background, we're going to be going for the Oath of Devotion. So they are going to start out being good for sure, which I love playing good characters. So I'm going to start this fellow out at lawful good. Now, one of the things about lawful good is their blind devotion to law, even if those laws are, not the best laws, depending on where they're coming from and everything, could be a way to lead into good RP and show some of that scaling of alignment away from lawful good into more chaotic good or neutral good, as they become more and more world-wise, I guess is the best way to put it. All right, now I want to jump into the background aspects of it. So we want to pick a background, and then we'll go into the traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws. And of course, the list of backgrounds right out of the player's handbook does not have a ton, but acolyte, I'm not feeling it. Charlatan, negative. Criminal, definitely not for my paladin. An entertainer, I'm just not feeling it. Folk hero could work, but I want to change it up a little bit. I don't want them to be heroic. We did that already once. Guild artisan, again, we've done that once, so I'm not really feeling it. A hermit, a noble. I like the noble, especially being that cavalier background. Outlander, I'm not feeling that one. Sailor, I'm not feeling that one. And soldier, I'm not feeling that one. Well, soldier you could do, I suppose. Soldier's not bad. No, I'm going to stick with noble. Again, the fanciness of this miniature really makes me think a noble background. And that's how I'm going to kind of push my DM to allow me to start with plate armor. I don't know if I'll get it done or not, but I'm going to try. And so my background, I am going to pick a noble background. So understanding wealth, power, and privilege. Carry a noble title. So we are going to put Sir Vince Stalwart. The family owns land, collects taxes, and wields significant political influence. You might be a pampered aristocrat unfamiliar with work or discomfort, or former merchant just elevated to the nobility, or a disinherited scoundrel with a disproportionate sense of entitlement. Or you could be an honest, hardworking landowner who cares deeply about the people who live and work on your land, keenly aware of your responsibility of them. Now that to me sounds like it fits perfect with my oath of devotion. So title, I would work with my GM and come up with the appropriate title. And again, I'm just keeping it very simple with Sir, Sir Vence Stalwart, and how much authority that title carries. And again, some of that will be in the campaign world. So noble title doesn't stand on its own. It's connected to an entire family, so that would be this Stalwart family. Oh, pardon me. And whatever title you hold, you will pass it down to your own children. So Sir Vence Stalwart, and I am going to put here Duke of I am going to put Duke of Greenfield. And again, it sounds very impressive, but with several siblings and not being the oldest, it doesn't carry as much weight as it could. But it's still a powerful name, especially in the Greenfield area of my gaming world. All right. So some of the things we need to think about: is the family old and established, or was title only recently bestowed? How much influence do they wield, and over what area? What kind of reputation do they have? So a lot of things that I'll have to work with my GM on. This is one of the aspects that I challenge people to spend more time on, is your background, especially if you're doing entry-level campaign where you're starting at first level. There is so much opportunity for you and your GM to create story threads, character development arcs through the use of your background. Spend some time and think about it. I really urge everybody to do that. Now, because of this background, I do have some additional proficiencies. So on my skills, I'll have history, which I'll be taught the history of the land and the family and nobility and all of that good stuff, as well as persuasion. Now, I've already got persuasion, so I'm going to double that up there. Tool proficiencies. I get one type of gaming set, and we'll say cards. Languages, we get to choose one of our choice. So I'm going to choose Elven. And then equipment, we have fine clothes. We'll have a signet ring. Scroll or pedigree of pedigree. Purse with 25 gold pieces. So real quick, I just want to look and see, does this figure have a ring? Gotta take my glasses off really to see. I don't see a ring on any of the fingers, but something that you could paint on, or even just do a little bit of sculpting with some green stuff and put a ring on, like his, especially where you've got a little bit of mold line on those fingers. You know, pop it on that first finger there where there's a little bit of a dimple, and could work really good. Or even on that front knuckle, maybe it doesn't fit the figure too well. So that will be the area we paint a signet ring. So it could be really cool. All right, so for a feature with the position of privilege, people are going to think best of us and give us comfort and things like that. So it's a good opportunity, especially if we're playing a kind of semi-urban campaign, right? We won't have to go to dregs or stay in barns, things like that. We should be welcomed in as a person of nobility. All right, so for the characteristics here. So we're going to start with personality traits. Now these ones here, you know how I do this. I roll and then see if it fits. If not, I pick. So on a 1d8, I don't like to get my hands dirty, and I won't be caught dead in unsuitable accommodations. Boy, I don't know. A guy carrying around a maul like that, I think he likes to swing that maul and get his hands dirty a little bit. So I'm not going to use that one. I'm going to pick one. All right, let's see. I am actually going to go with there are quite a few good ones here, but I am going to go with I like this one. I take great pains to always look my best and follow the latest fashions. So I take great pains to always look my best and follow the latest fashions, thus the shaved head and the fancy mustache. It's big at court in the Duchy of Greenfield. Now for the ideal, again, we're going to roll and see if we like the outcome. So that's a 3. That would be independence. I must prove that I can handle myself without the coddling of my family. So that's a little more chaotic to start. I mean, it's okay, but I'm not feeling it quite as much. Here's one that I'm liking a little bit better for this character, and that is all about respect. R-E-S-P-E-C-T is due to me because of my position, but all people, regardless of station, deserve to be treated with dignity. They are not going to scoff at commoner NPCs or poor beggars. They will treat them with dignity. Because even though this character, Sir Vence Stalwart, Duke of Greenfield, knows that he is due respect because of his position, he is not going to disrespect others because of his position. So I like that aspect of the character. It's going to allow me as a player to go in and have good quality interactions with NPCs that my GM puts in front of us. Now for a bond, my loyalty to my sovereign is unwavering. I like that. I like that. I think that ties right back into the lawfulness. But I actually like this one better. The common folk must see me as a hero of the people. And that one really strikes a chord with me for this character because that's why he is adventuring so old in his life. It isn't for anything other than to show his people that he is a hero for the people. So perhaps there was something that caused him at this late stage in the game to take on this oath, to work towards this oath of devotion on behalf of his people. And he's always trying to look as good and everything because that's the proper way that he was raised. and he has respect for others. That's why he's taking on the mantle, doing it a little bit in his older years. And then for a flaw, so that roll would get us a flaw of, in fact, the world does revolve around me. That one's a little vain. Which I like, that vanity aspect of it. Why not? This noble lord, who always is trying to be prim and proper and in fashion, and feels that he is going out to adventure on behalf of the people of Greenfield, is really kind of altruistic. And he is doing it because he wants the center of attention to be on him. So that's kind of his flaw. He's doing the right thing, but it's not because of the right reason necessarily. He's doing the right thing, but not because of the right reason. I think that's great. That's already starting to build ways to kind of look at how I can interact from this character's, mindset. So far, I'm really digging it. I'm really digging it. Now I want to get down into some of the equipment, and here's what we're going to do. We know we've got a martial weapon, and I know I want to do a maul. So his primary martial weapon is going to be a maul. But for his attack bonus, that is going to be a +1. And that will do 2d6 bludgeoning. And then he gets 2 martial weapons. So here's where I'm going to throw some things up. One of those is going to be a short sword. Which is on the front of that miniature, right? We've got that sword there. And that is going to be a +1 with a damage type of 1d6 piercing. And then we've got another martial weapon and a simple melee weapon. So for our second martial weapon, I am going to choose, it doesn't really have any other weapons that you can see, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and pick one, and for his, because he likes that maul so much, I am actually going to say his backup is going to be a Morning Star. Which will also have a +1 into a 1d8 piercing. Because I can see him liking big, heavy things. And then we get a simple melee weapon. And for that one there, I am going to say his backup is going to be, I'm leaning towards a mace. I'm leaning towards a mace. Just again, it's a big, heavy weapon. Yeah, let's do it. Very blunt figure. This guy here likes to hammer things. And that's 1d6 bludgeon. So there we've got the weapons done. Now, here's an aspect that we have to think about, is the armor. So we started out with chain armor, if we were to change that and try to talk our GM into getting us plate mail, right? Plate mail is going to be 1,500 gold pieces. 1,500, and my start is 25. That's a big leap. That's a big variance. So how would I get my GM to get me plate armor from the beginning? So here's what I'm going to do. If I got plate armor, which would give me an armor class of 16, that's 2 above chainmail. What if this plate armor is decorative, family plate with a -2 AC? A -2 AC. It's designed more for appearance than it is for protection. What if I told my GM, if I take a -2, can I have decorative plate armor that I can repair or get some type of reinforced plates or something to make it over time that'll cost me 1,500? That would keep my armor class at 16. And then allow my opportunity for my miniature to wear plate armor. That's how I'm going to do it. And if I were painting this mini, that's what I would do. I would not paint this like regular plate armor. I would paint it like painted plate mail armor. So maybe greens or blues or something to show that it is not just regular plate armor. I would want to try to look at how can I make this fancy. Maybe I'll paint it white, like very fancy white armor. And that way I've got some type of an aspect to really talk about what that AC is going to be. So for armor, we know that we are proficient with it, so we're fine. And we're not carrying a shield. So our armor class is going to be a 16. And we need a strength of 13 or 15 if we're wearing plate. But because I'm taking the disadvantage, I'm going to keep it there. And I can't wear the plate until I get the 15. I can't get the big part, the big aspect of the bonus, until I get it repaired and I have the right strength, which I know already I'm going to dump some points into strength as I get ability score increases. So there we've got those all picked out. Now I want to look at the packs. So our options were a priest pack or an explorer's pack, and I jotted down a priest pack, and here's why. Your priest pack includes a backpack, blanket, 10 candles, tinder box, alms box, 2 blocks of incense, a censer, vestments, 2 days of rations, and a water skin. For me, I think a lot of those components can actually fit in the pouches much easier and really allow us to have that kind of tie-in to the class of the paladin. These are things that they will take with them. And it's actually kind of interesting. So as I was thinking about it, I thought about the book being part of that thing showing his pedigree, rather than like a scroll, right? He carries around his lineage in the book. So that is his, rather than a scroll, it is a book. Of pedigree. And that goes through and lists out, it has the entire family history so that he can show all the way back to when the nobility of the Greenfields came into being. They've tracked everything all the way down through the lines. So I'm going to erase that priest pack. I'm going to pop those aspects onto it. So a backpack and blanket, We've got 10 candles. We've got a tinderbox. We've got an alms box. We've got 2 blocks of incense. We've got a censer. We've got vestments. We've got 2 days rations. I'm just going to put 2 dots there so I can erase them. And then a water skin. Whew, look at that. We've already hit all of our time, and we haven't really covered like who Vence is. So just real quickly, I'm going to put a little bit of background here. So Sir Vence, having lived in station for years, studying history and working through many diplomatic ventures on behalf of the people of Greenfield, decided to begin adventuring while preparing to take an oath as a greenskeeper. So see what I did there? So the greens field and a greenskeeper works on golf courses, so it kind of ties it in. Maybe in the aspects on that tabard, we'll do a tartan style pattern, so we tie in. This is a an older noble, older than what a normal adventurer would be. We're going to tie it into golfing, family, history, and really red mustached. This is feeling super Scottish, so maybe I would role play them with a Scottish accent if I could do it justice. But Vence, Sir Vence. So, donning his family's decorative plate, Vence is looking for rights to, or oh no, that's not right. Not rights to wrong, wrongs to right. Wrongs to right across the lands as they could eventually impact the people of Greenfield. Very focused on those aspects, which plays right into his ideals and his bonds. So, Sir Vence Stalwart. I'm going to add a couple of notes in here too, just to say I want a tartan tabard, maybe the cape, and decorative armor. I'm going to put colored. red mustache. That's heavily waxed. And yeah, there we go. A paladin. A very interesting paladin. Let's do his Sir Vence Stalwart, Duke of Greenfield. Sir Vence Stalwart, Duke of Greenfield. Man, what a Scottish vibe I've got off of this miniature, which I didn't initially, to tell you the truth, I really didn't have like a Scottish vibe off of this guy. But man, the more I play with it and think about his background and kind of ties to the land, the more I got it. Especially with that last bit, the order he's trying to gain is as a greenkeeper. Maybe that's something historically that his family set. Only the most virtuous and the best of the best were elevated as greenkeepers, had an additional type of station or medal or something identifying them as protectors of the land. And Vence, after years of going out and working for the family, probably brokering some type of deals with neighboring duchies, was like, you know what, I can do more than this. I'm strong, I'm fierce, I can go out and just do some massive combat. So I'm going to devote myself to becoming a greenkeeper. So there we go. Off of one miniature, we have got Sir Vence Stalwart, the Duke of Greenfield. And just like that, we've created a very complex, interesting, and deep character that we can roleplay and grow through a campaign that would be interesting, fun to interact with, and we've provided details that the GM can work into the story and work story on, and we can continue developing the character, the area, the people, the family, just with what we've laid down here. So I hope this was insightful. I hope it was helpful, and I hope it was entertaining as well as we built this character. Next week we will do the other character that did not get selected this week, unless as I'm going through the studio this weekend there's something else that catches my mind. You never know. We may end up doing something villainous for the GMs. It's hard to say, but right now I am planning on doing that other player character, which also really caught my eye. But between the two of them, I think this one was the right way to go. I think we built a fantastic character, and I hope you enjoyed it and were inspired to look at character creation a little bit differently, starting with when you're shopping at your local gaming store and see a really cool miniature, or shopping online and seeing a really cool miniature. Go ahead, grab it. It does not have to meet your current player character. Utilize it and develop a character off of it. It's so much fun and interesting and can lead to a lot of great opportunities. But until next week, keep ready to roll the dice, see where we come out then.